This is the last video in Module 5. We're covering firewall logging. A firewall without logging is a barrier. It stops traffic, but it tells you nothing. A firewall with logging is a barrier and a detection tool. It tells you what tried to reach your network, what was allowed, what was blocked, and when. That information is the foundation of incident detection, forensic investigation, and ongoing security monitoring. A firewall that silently blocks traffic enforces your rules but gives you nothing to work with afterward. So, have a log. Logs will record every connection attempt, source IP, destination IP, protocol, destination port, action taken, whether it was a permit or deny, and a timestamp. Every packet the firewall evaluates generates a log entry when logging is enabled. That log stream creates a continuous record of network activity at the boundary. Denied traffic logs are particularly valuable. They show you what tried to reach your network and failed. A spike in denied connection attempts from a single source tells you a scan or an active attack is in progress. Denied outbound connections from an OT device suggest that device may be compromised and attempting to communicate somewhere it shouldn't. Denied access attempts to critical OT assets from unexpected internal IP addresses may indicate an attacker who's already inside another zone trying to move laterally. Without logs, none of this is visible. After an incident, forensic investigators look for firewall logs to understand how an attacker moved through the network. No logs mean no forensic record. You know something happened, but you can't reconstruct how, when, or what systems were reached. Not every denied connection is an attack. Firewalls deny plenty of routine traffic that simply doesn't match a permit rule. But specific patterns warrant attention. A large volume of denied connections from a single source IP in a short time window is characteristic of a port scan. An attacker methodically probing which services are reachable on your network. 5 denied attempts from one IP is normal. 5,000 in an hour from the same IP is not. Denied outbound connections from an OT device to external internet addresses are a red flag. OT devices have no legitimate reason to initiate connections to internet addresses. A PLC trying to connect to an external IP or a historian server trying to reach a domain name that's never appeared in your logs before suggests something on that device is attempting unauthorized outreach. Permitted connections at unusual times. A vendor VPN session established at 2 a.m. on a Sunday or a remote access session to an HMI on a holiday are worth verifying. Were they authorized? Is there a change request associated with that access? Anomalous timing doesn't prove malice, but it warrants a phone call to confirm. New destinations appearing for the first time in connections from OT devices should be reviewed. OT systems communicate with a predictable set of internal addresses. A new destination that has never appeared in the logs before is either a new legitimate service, which should be reflected in a configuration change, or something that wasn't intended. Generating logs is the first step. Managing them so they're useful is the second. Enable logging on all the rules, both permit and deny rules. Permitted traffic logs tell you what's flowing normally and create the baseline against which anomalies are measured. Denied traffic logs tell you what's being stopped. Logging only deny rules gives you half the picture. Ship those logs to a centralized log management system rather than relying on local storage on the firewall device itself. Firewall internal storage is limited. If the firewall is wiped, replaced, or compromised, locally stored logs may be lost. A central log server inside your network, not on the OT network itself, retains logs independently of any single device. Retain logs for a minimum of 90 days. Many OT regulatory frameworks, NERC, CIP, and others, specify longer retention requirements. In practice, incident investigations frequently need to look back weeks or months to understand how an attack developed. Logs that were overwritten because retention was too short make investigations harder or impossible. In larger organizations, firewall logs are typically shipped to a security information and event management system, commonly called an SIEM or SIEM. A SIEM aggregates logs from multiple sources: firewalls, endpoints, authentication systems, OT monitoring platforms, and applies correlation rules and analytics to detect patterns across them. OT teams in smaller facilities may not operate a SIEM directly, but understanding what a SIEM does helps you participate in conversations about centralized security monitoring. The firewall log you enable today is the data source the SIEM analyzes tomorrow. The last point I want to emphasize is logs that are generated but never reviewed provide no security value. They give you a false sense that visibility exists when actually nobody is looking. Building a practical log review process doesn't have to mean reviewing millions of entries manually. It means know what your normal traffic patterns look like, establish automated alerts for the specific patterns that warrant immediate attention, like high deny volumes or outbound OT connections, off-hours remote access, and then schedule a regular review of logs against those baselines. At a minimum, someone should be reviewing OT firewall logs weekly and investigating anomalies. For higher risk environments or environments under regulatory requirements, more frequent review or continuous monitoring is appropriate. That's the end of Module 5. In Module 6, we'll cover network assessment tools, how to see what's actually on your network and what it's doing. That's where the concepts from the past 5 modules come together into actionable practices you can apply in your environment. We'll see you in the next module.